Imagine walking into an operating room and not knowing what's happening or coming next or what the surgeon expects or what the patient requires. I'm Mark Copeland. This is how I'm building this, a subset of our podcast, Sutures and Sense. And just imagine walking into that room. This is what new nurses and inexperienced nurses and scrub techs and second shift, 3 o'clock shift change, on call, weekend, or experienced nurses and circulators and scrub techs and reps who walk into rooms in a different specialty. On call, you do all ortho and you're doing a lap chole on a Saturday, or vice versa. You do lap choles all day. Now you're on call and you have to do a hip fracture, hip nail, whatever that is. And you don't know what the surgeon wants. You kind of do. You have these preference cards you pull up, and what they really are is pick lists and some notes somebody wrote in them, churned out of Epic or Cerner, which, by the way, are designed for billing, not for knowledge, right? Not for training, not for advanced scouting reports, as we used to say when I was a basketball coach 47 million years ago. Imagine walking into that room. Patients assuming, and patient's family is assuming you know what you're doing, but you don't know this that well. You know what happens? That case goes longer. That case, you bleed more as a patient. You're under anesthesia more. Your outcomes decrease incrementally by the length of time you're in the operating room and under anesthesia. Your likelihood of infection increases. And everybody knows it, and nobody likes to talk about it. But at 3 o'clock on a regular scheduled day, or on call on the weekends, the B team is in the room. And that's not because they're not skilled. It means they're not as familiar as the first shift A team. This is a health equity issue. This is a commonly known phenomenon in every operating room, likely in the world, but everyone I've ever seen in the United States. And how do nurses and reps and these circulators and surgeons and anesthesia manage to keep all these notes together? Well, it's not easy, and there aren't great systems for it. But my friend Marrianne McGhee, who's a perioperative services nurse who has worked in the operating theater, as you'll hear her call it, in Australia, where she's from, created a new app called Scrub Up. And I like it. And if I were a full-time spine rep like I used to be, I would be a subscriber to this, because we keep all sorts of notes on what our doctor uses, what he or she likes, what kind of bed they use, things that are outside the scope of the spinal implant hardware I used to sell, but well within the operating room theater and the team that's involved, because it is a team. And when you have new people in the room, everybody knows it. Wouldn't it be nice if before you walked into that room, you could look some of these things up and know everything from what kind of music the surgeon likes to what kind of surgical table they'll need for their next case? Everything's better. Patients are safer. Outcomes are better. Staff is happier, more satisfied, doesn't feel like they're walking into what you'll hear Marrianne McGhee describing on one of the first cases she had to do in the operating room. Enough of me yapping. Let's bring on Marrianne McGhee of Scrub Up and learn her story and learn how she's building Scrub Up as we talk. So, Marrianne, I'm your next door neighbor. I'm in the trucking industry, and I don't know anything other than I know you're a nurse, and I know you work in the operating room. And I say to you, hey, Marrianne, I heard you created an app or something for the operating room. Like, what? Tell me about this. What is this? And what would you say to that person, your next door neighbor?
I'd say, hi, love to know more about trucking, but first, most importantly, happy to share what I do in the operating room.
You're so nice. You don't want to know anything about trucking.
No, as long as you drive safe on the road. I don't want to see you in an operating room.
There you go. That's what we like. So tell me about this. You created something for operating room staff, and maybe some more. But how would you explain it to somebody who's never heard of it, never seen it, doesn't know what it is?
Okay, well, first I'd explain actually what do operating room nurses or techs,
Mm-hmm.
scrub technicians do in the operating room. So we all know there's surgery, a lot of blood and guts. But behind all of that, there's people like me. I'm an operating room nurse. I've worked in a number of hospitals, both in the public and private sector. And what we do is we get the operating room ready for the surgeon, because we want that surgeon to be focused on the surgery. They don't want to be distracted. They want to focus on what they need to do to help that patient or that truckie get back on the road to deliver those products. So what we do is we prepare. So we check the operating room. We make sure we have all the equipment, and the equipment are instrument sets, company sets, supplies, hardware, microscopes, lasers. There's a whole lot that goes with it. And I think the easiest way to suggest this is to say, pretend you're a builder. If you could build on a building site, you've got your patient who's the house, let's say. So your builder couldn't be your orthopedic surgeon. And that orthopedic surgeon uses different tools of the trade and approaches in what they do. Then you have your painter. That painter might use similar tools to the orthopedic surgeon or the builder, but that painter, might be a plastic surgeon who uses particular equipment and particular surgical approaches to, maintain and optimize patient outcomes and streamline surgical procedures. You've also got your plumber. Your plumber could be your urologist. They've got
Sense.
scopes that go down little channels that need to look at big organs to make diagnosis and to do biopsies. And then you've got, again, different tools of the trade and different surgical approaches. So the role of those nurses and techs or scrub technicians are to assist each of those specialties to make sure that surgeon is not distracted and is focused, and that we, as surgical team members, have prepared for that particular surgical procedure. Depending on the specialty, orthopedics use a lot of heavy mallets and equipment, and those nurses and techs need to understand exactly the workflow and procedural flow for each surgical case so that they can have all that equipment ready for that one patient. But remember, in the operating room, each surgical list can have five or so patients on the list for a morning or afternoon. And so we need to make sure all the equipment and instruments and checks are compatible, attract, and compliant with hospital needs, and also fast-tracked so that we can streamline the workflow of the operating room.
Yeah,
and we're also highlighting patient safety, Mark. Sorry. Patient safety is optimized. We want the best clinical outcomes, and that's why we need to make sure preparation is key, but also surgeon distraction is limited.
Yeah, I really like that analogy, and we know, like, anytime you're distracted, you're not as good at what you're doing if you aren't distracted. And when you're locked in on a very focused spot, like you've been in hundreds of, probably thousands of surgeries. I've probably been in 20,000, not anywhere near like you, but they are hyper focused, or they're in complete flow and they're super comfortable because everything is going along according to plan. But it's like a Broadway show, and there's a bunch of people behind the scenes making sure the lighting is right. Like, I love your analogy though of the house and the building, and of course, with my long history in the trucking industry, that would be something I could relate to. So I like this. So it is very complex, and you as and I love it. Like Australia, they call them basically, I think we call them scrub techs and circulators. You're describing surgical techs. Or give me the exact terminology that you use in Australia for the operating room staff versus the United States.
The target focus are the operating room nurses. We don't have a lot of technicians here or surgical technologists. We do have some ODPs, which is the UK version of operating room department practitioners, and they also do the same role as surgical techs and operating room nurses. So I can also be an instrument nurse, and assist the surgeon, but also a circulator who's the runner, or the scout nurse is a UK version of that, which you guys do have as the operating room circulator.
Yeah, I like that term, scout nurse. That's I've never heard that before.
So yeah, I think it's from the war. Yeah, the scout nurse does the runner.
Makes sense.
They're not running out of the room; they're coming back.
Yeah, I've already learned. Supplies.
They help optimize workflow.
Right. Okay, so it is complicated, and I think people who know the OR completely understand what you mean, but people who aren't don't really know this, and when you describe the complexity, I think people start to get a sense of it. But I really like your analogy about the builder, and so you this morning could be doing 3 total knees, and this afternoon do lap choles and mastectomies,
exactly.
So that's the painter, the plumber, the roofer,
urologist.
I'm screwing up your analogy, but so that's so hard to keep. You can't keep all that in your head. And
no,
what do people usually do?
So at the moment, Mark, look, and I've come from an education perspective because I realised I've been in this industry since 1998. And I realised working across a number of private and public sectors that nurses in Australia learn on the job in the operating room. So there's some, and it's becoming much more demanding, technical and complex. And even though we're looking at surgical specialties, there's also different surgical approaches. So you've got the traditional open surgical approach requiring traditional surgical instrumentation. Then you've got laparoscopic, requiring laparoscopic instrumentation. Now you've got robotic, another set of instrumentations, and anything at any time can pivot, especially when you're doing robotic and laparoscopic cases. If the case needs to go open, then we need to have those open instruments ASAP. So that's another reason for having a resource tool to go to, because a lot of that information is in your head. We do have surgeons' preferences, but they're not complete, and they're missing the secret sauce, and they're missing special steps that sometimes you need quickly. And the longer that patient's on the operating room table increases the patient's risk, as well as having a domino impact on hospital costs and surgical beds. So this has a complete impact on wait lists and nurse turnover as well, because if those nurses are stuck there doing cases that go open, they might have to back up again tomorrow. So there's a cost there. And also, we all know there's a global shortage of specialty-based nurses and techs in the operating room. So getting back to your story, sorry, I do tend to talk a lot. So
no, I like this. This is great.
So why did I develop it? Because, I realized the intensity and the demands of the surgeons and the surgical team, that they want what they want at the time. They don't want it 2 minutes later or 5 minutes later. And if they do, it may be used elsewhere. It may not be available, the specific instrument that surgeon might require. So I also developed this platform to share knowledge so that my junior nurses and techs won't feel so foreign when they go into the operating room. They have a resource tool to look at, to refer to, and it can also then track their own surgical progression, Mark. And this is great because I think from there, especially as a junior, learning the tools of the trade and learning the practices of the perioperative suite, that you can track what surgical cases you've been involved with, what specialty, and also in what role and capacity. And that's important for building experience and exposure and optimizing safety.
It's funny. I have looked at your app, Scrub Up, and downloaded it, really liked it. Sent it to several friends of mine saying, hey, you might want to check this out. Because I think many things, the first thing that popped into my head was it captures that tribal knowledge that doesn't show up on a preference card, right? Because a preference card will say, pull these things. It'd be like saying, pull these kind of nails, these hammers, this paintbrush, like using your analogy. But it doesn't tell you when you use them, like when it goes sideways, make sure you have 3 more of these and have them. that sort of stuff that you learn oftentimes through your more experienced team or mentors, or through like bright, as I used to say, hot lights and cold steel. And I remember you telling me a story of you being thrown into a case very early on and not enjoying how you felt. So could you describe that? Because it makes people uncomfortable.
That's exactly when the seed for this platform was created. Hence, I didn't know that at the time. But yeah, as a junior nurse learning the skills of the operating room, I was unaware as the pressures. You're a little bit naive. You're in this intimidating environment. I was I was being mentored by my senior colleague who happened to be off sick that day. So you've got some HR issues, and that happens all the time. And because I'd been
how
doing
dare they be sick?
I'd been doing my vascular rotation, so a lot of blood, and the surgeon requires equipment quite quickly, hand exchanges in vascular. And so I thought, I've been doing this for 6 weeks. That's fine. I'll scrub for it. And besides that, this surgeon, although very skillful, was extremely intimidating. And many of your listeners will hopefully relate to somebody like that, highly skillful. But, Anyway, yes. So I thought, okay, I can do this. It's an embolectomy. It'll be fine. So my circulator nurse was a neuro specialty nurse who said, I am not scrubbing for this surgeon. I said, oh, that's fine. It's a simple case. I'll be fine. I'll scrub. I think we've got everything. It's an embolectomy. Well,
famous last words, as they say. Yeah.
So doing the case, things weren't going to plan. The patient was losing a whole lot of blood quickly. The surgeon was, very upset that I didn't have the ability to anticipate the needs of the surgeon, and also I didn't have easily available the equipment they required. My scout nurse was out running up and down corridors trying to find equipment, all the while the surgeon was yelling abuse at me, rightfully so at the time. And I did stand there thinking, yep, I know why he needs this. I'm not, I just wasn't prepared. So it turned out the case was going from an embolectomy to a femoral bypass, which was a big case. So instead of going for 1 hour, I went for 3 hours. All the while, the registrar, which is the trainee surgeon, he copped a lot of this as well, which I'm grateful for because it rebounded it coming out from, hitting me, the surgeon's stress. So anyway, look, the surgery went well in the end. We got equipment not as quickly as required. And all the while, though, I thought, I am useless. This is not what I should be doing. I'm obviously not good at this. And the surgeon was aware that I was training. And at the end of the procedure, even though I was thinking, geez, I'm hopeless. I'm not a good vascular nurse. Maybe I should be doing another vocation. I've always thought of mental health. But anyway, at the end of the surgery, I'm packing up my equipment, and the surgeon actually came up to me and said, thank you, you did well. That was actually a really tough case. And I thought, oh my God, yes. And I'm thinking, how? And this is where the seed for Scrub Up was planted. How could I have done better? How could I have been better prepared for what could have gone wrong? Even though I didn't have that knowledge, I didn't have that experience, and I didn't have a senior colleague to direct me. I was just prompted by the surgeon, who was quite agitated at my lack of understanding and preparation, but he understood I was learning, and he knew that I was trying my best with the capacity I could give him at the time. So,
To credit to that surgeon for getting through it and giving you that compliment, because that sort of changed. I mean, it probably changed your attitude that day. You were going home. You were questioning whether you should even do this job. To okay, maybe I'm going to be okay. And then how can I do this better? What could we do better? So, that's a horribly difficult spot to put you in. And it happens, though. We know it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
So tell me about this. So you get the seed of this idea. Yeah, and then talk to me through the progression. How do you I realized then, this is at one specific hospital, then I realized going to other hospitals, this problem's everywhere. And then I
became a senior nurse, and I'm trying to share my senior knowledge to my juniors. And I'm thinking there must be a better way, because like you're saying, this is a little bit tribal. And yes, we do we have pick lists in hospitals, so where you can pick equipment and then attach them to a surgeon's preference. But it's so much more than that. This is about how do you prep the patient. This is clinical knowledge that to date verbally gets communicated, if you're lucky, at times, or it gets observed by juniors. Oh, this is what I've got to do. This is the next phase. How to prioritize what needs to be done is important, especially during a surgical flow. So then I realized this is everywhere, and I went to some senior colleagues. I ended up getting some money in my account. Unfortunately, my parents passed away, and I had some money, and I said to my husband, "You're going to buy real estate?" I went, "No, I'm going to develop Scrub Up." So with
Good
no business, I just saw the need so strongly that I thought, no, this is everywhere. I worked in New Zealand and I realized it was there. And I've worked in other parts of Australia, and I thought, no, this needs to be developed. And speaking to a few nurse colleagues, senior colleagues, I said, what do you think? And they went, great. This is a great idea. So I developed Scrub Up, and I've developed it on my own, bootstrapping it still to date, trying to build that business strategy. And look, I'm not perfect. Finding the right people to join me has been difficult. But I'm really focused on getting this into hospitals. So Mark, when you say, what do you want? This needs to be an operating room, in every operating room, because we need to know what perioperative nurses and techs do, and we need to optimize and enhance the care we give our patients and also the support we give our surgeons, because we want them to be focused. We want a surgeon to walk in and go, oh, I'm helping out for the day because your senior nurse has had not been able to come in for whatever reason, but here I am doing their role. I'm trying to do it as best as I can in their absence. I hope that's okay. And if I've got Scrub Up, yeah, sure. Every little intricate detail about what I need, including the music I listen to.
Which we both know is sometimes important. Let's take a break for a minute and talk to our sponsor, me. This podcast is brought to you by me, Mark Copeland, the Value Analysis Whisperer. Have you ever tried to get a new product, your new innovative medical device, approved in an ambulatory surgery center or hospital and failed? Have you ever thought about the amount of patients who can't get access to your innovative medical device because you can't get it approved? Have you ever thought about the clinician champions of yours who are frustrated because you and your company can't get your new product approved where they work? Of course you have. We all have had that happen. Here's the difference. Are you ready to make a change and do something about it? If so, go to my website, valueanalysisexpert.com, and click on some time with me, Mark Copeland, the Value Analysis Whisperer. You can do this. I will help. Now, back to our podcast. Okay, so yeah, I can see why surgeons would just be thrilled by that, because they get to put in what's theirs and upload it and download it. And I mean, I think a smart surgeon would say, hey, I'm at Mainland, whatever hospital was you said, I'd say, hey, Marrianne, you're scrubbing in with me tomorrow. Here's my Scrub Up stuff, right? And you theoretically could look at it the night before, or in reality, you could look at it the night before, the morning of.
Definitely.
Refresh, right? Yeah. It's really
and
smart.
That's something, especially if it's something you're unfamiliar with and you just want to be prepared. You go, okay, what approach does this surgeon take for this? Okay, that's fine. Do I need to hydrate? How long is this case going to go for? Those type of things. And that's important for well-being as well, and mental preparation, not just physical. Yeah.
Yeah. Marrianne, I can't tell you, as a spine rep for a long time, I can't tell you how many times the surgeon would have the last case booked 4:00 in the afternoon. So you now have second shift that came in at 3 in the U.S. is when they basically come in, and they're working hard. They're great, but they're not necessarily accustomed, right, to what is going on. They're not the first shift team. And they'd be asking me, the rep, the knucklehead rep, hey, what kind of bed does he use? What kind of setup does he use? What's he prep with? And you could either go, I don't know, right? Or you could make cheat sheets the whole time. And it wasn't just for me, it was for them when they would ask. And when I saw Scrub Up, I remember going like, oh, this would have been so nice when I was running and gunning as a full, like, I would have had my team, we would have had all of it in there because it would have helped us help them do these procedures. I love it. And I really like how you have it set up. So tell me about you. You take some money, you create this. You have a bunch of your nurse friends who are like, oh, that'd be awesome. Your senior nurses are going, we would love this. You actually, how did you make this app? Tell me.
Well, yeah, well, well, I was lucky to find a developer. Look, and I've had some challenges because, people look at my profile. I've been around a little while because I've had challenges, but I'm also bootstrapping and, looking after family and relatives. So, but my focus is this platform at the moment. So I'm living life, but also striving to get this and commercialize it into hospitals. So I found a developer, had an idea, and I was very clear on what it needed to be and how it needed to work because I understand operating room teams do not have a lot of time. So this needs to be easily accessible, easily accessible, full of knowledge, full of practical skills to streamline processes. And that's what it does. And I was so impressed with my team and my project manager at the time. She was amazing that developed the current platform. So now we're looking to upscale and commercialize into hospitals, to get it into hospitals so that we can link it into best practices, quality assurance, best standards, and, provide patients.
I actually like how it looks. It looks like somebody from Apple or HubSpot, which is a big CRM software, and it's so intuitive. You basically turn it on and you go, I got it. And you're already into it. Like, it's almost, you learn so fast because it's so obvious. It's really well designed. And I like that. So let's talk about how you have several thousand downloads of your app.
Yes.
and I don't know what the number is now, but it's significant. Do you know what the number is?
Look, I've just done an update, to be honest with you. So since October, I can't keep living on nothing, on a nurse's wage. So I've had to monetize it. And I wanted to share this with my users because this is something maybe they're not aware of because they're probably a little upset with me because I've had to create a monetization process for this just to support the outgoing costs of this platform. Because to date, I have built it all myself with my own money, everyone. And it's a passion of mine because I really, truly believe this is something, substantial that needs to be in hospitals. So to date, I've just started to create a monetized version where it'll be a freemium, a tier 1 and a tier 2. So the tier 1 has features and functionality, but tier 2 has the complete package that was previously free. So I know some people my users are upset about that. And I do apologize, but I also hope they understand that this is a platform that I hope they do value. And I hope they do find that $4.99 or $5.99 or $9.99 a month is not that bad for what you get. And it's also a tax deduction as a work-related expense.
Right. I will tell you, I think surgeons should look for this and buy it for their teams. I mean, seriously, if I bought it for my surgical team and I have 5 people who need your version, and it's $10 a license, you just asked me to spend $600 a year to make sure my OR runs better. I mean, like, that's not even hard. I was like, well, maybe I should buy 10 licenses, right? Like, it would be money very well spent, just out of my own pocket.
Definitely, Mark. And this is where the interest, I have created a B2C market targeting the problem that I saw for junior nurses learning on the job, but also for the surgeons having teams they may be unfamiliar with which happens all the time. That's just life. So now I'm looking to commercialize and have hospitals. And the impact on hospitals is much more costly because, if you've got teams with junior nurses or junior techs training, with surgeons who, sometimes communication styles vary. If we can have a platform that shares communication and shares equipment on ways that surgeons like to do things, so that surgical team are aware, are fully prepared in all the details and intricacies. Knowing a surgeon is left-handed before you walk in is huge for a surgical team, because it matters how we place things on our trolley, and where we stand in the operating room.
Right.
We might set up and the surgeon goes, I'm left-handed. And we're like, what? Because the majority of us are right, okay? Sorry, but
right.
This surgeon's been working for 60 years, and he's like, I've been doing this for 60 years. I want you to know what I've been doing for 60 years. Don't, and then I've got to move around the other side and get close to them because I'm on the opposite side, and whatever that looks like.
Yeah. So you've commercialized it. You're starting to charge.
Commercialize it.
And frankly, you should, because it is worthwhile and it is valuable. But trying to find who pays for it, right? That's and it's not will people pay for it? It's who pays for it. What's your plan for a hospital if you could go to all the hospitals in Australia and US and Europe and Asia? Who do you think is the person who wins the most with this? Do you know?
What do you think the person I think who wins is, let's think about who's on the table there, the patient, because as I've said before, the longer the patient is on the operating room table increases not the hospital's risks, but also the patient's risks. So the idea to get that patient into the operating room and out of the operating room, and we've got sending them home same day surgeries now, which is great, but that process is important. Just remember that when you've got junior nurses in the operating room, you've got supplies, you've got a whole lot of wastage, and you've got longer surgical times if teams are not prepared, or if surgery pivots and the equipment's not available and the team do not know where the equipment is, or they don't have the equipment at the time. So there's a financial cost to a hospital as well.
An enormous financial cost, I might add, yeah.
Whether it's 1 or 2 minutes, and I know as a junior nurse training, getting equipment intraoperatively, making sure it's all there, there's time. It takes a little bit longer if it's not the same team all the time. But also if a case pivots, sometimes it just does pivot. So we need to make sure equipment's available, you've got the team, you're, enhancing and optimizing the flow of the operating room, reducing costs, reducing errors, reducing mistakes, freeing up bed availability, and also optimizing safety of your colleagues as well and your surgeon. You want your surgeon focused, not distracted, not tense, not stressed. So
it is one of the most complicated settings I will ever be in my life. And we still do it by rote memorization, tribal knowledge, a couple of posters on the wall, and somebody might have Google Notes somewhere. Like it is sort of astounding, and it's not for lack of technology. I don't know what it is, but I sit here and think like every educator and every VP of perioperative services should be saying, we need to look at this for our operating rooms, because we are flooded with new operating room team members now, particularly since COVID. And, so many of the old who did seem to know everything, so many of them have retired. There's been an enormous brain drain, and their brains walked out. We don't have it anymore. It's frustrating.
Yeah, no, you're right, Mark, especially in the perioperative environment. In Australia, there's going to be a shortage in 10 years of 70,000 specialty perioperative teams. So we need to, support what we're doing, understand what we're doing. We're surrounded by technology, and we need technology to support our roles in the operating room, not just, hey, we're getting the robot, we're getting this equipment, the surgeon wants this and they want that. What about what the perioperative teams do? Because that's important. And going back to my global uptake, so I developed it as a B2C market to test the global, interest, and it's been downloaded in over, 60 plus countries. America, and this is why we're talking, because you guys are much more innovative and open to change. I find Australia's a little bit stagnant. I don't know why in regards to some areas, and maybe because it's a little bit difficult. I'm not sure, but America have been my largest user market, and I'm not just getting operating room nurses. I'm getting surgical techs. I'm getting surgeons. I'm getting anesthesiologists using this platform. I'm getting ODPs in the UK using it. So it is global. They're telling me this is important for them. At the moment, it's a phone. They can't use it as much in the operating room, which is why we're looking to upscale, get a hospital trial and a pilot to get this into hospitals so we can have something that hospitals can use to, save money.
Yeah. What would you need to get it in a hospital? Are you ready to go and they just don't know about you, or is there something you feel like you need before a hospital could bring you in?
Looking to, kind of partner. As I said, this is me developing it, having a partnership to help upscale this. So I have got interest in helping me develop this from a more corporate perspective. So developing something like Scrub Up, but to be able to link it to current hospital technology and their own EMR systems is what really I'd love to do. And whether I do that on my own with the hospital or with a corporate team to get it out there into the hospital. And look, I'm open to partnerships because this isn't about me. This is about the safety and knowledge of our, patients and also our hospital costs.
It always comes back to patient care. Like it always does. And every single thing about Scrub Up is designed to take care of patients better, more safely, with less stress, and with less lack of knowledge. It's one thing to be inexperienced and be learning. It's another thing to have all this knowledge around and we're not aggregating it and putting it in one spot so people can learn faster. And it actually boggles my mind sometimes. And I love your product, and I like you.
Yes.
And I really think highly of your product. And I hope that this helps you get a step closer. So you know how I usually end these podcasts. I usually ask, like, hey, if you blew out the candle on your birthday cake or you lost a tooth and you put it under your pillow and the tooth fairy visited you next day and granted you the wish you made, what would your wish be for Scrub Up today?
Am I allowed more than one?
Yes, because you're so nice.
Oh, well, look, I love, a partnership with somebody who's has the same ideology as me. This is about patient safety and making surgery safer and optimizing the care that those perioperative staff members give these patients and give this hospital. So partnerships, whether it's a hospital or corporate body or somebody out there who's interested in upscaling this platform, putting some money in for equity, happy to do that, to get this into the commercial profile of hospitals, but also looking to grow the B2C market. And this is where, because it's I've got over 6,000, clearly nearly, over 6,000 users around the world, predominantly 5,000 of them are in the USA. And if there's companies that are interested in, showcasing their products to this global market and also helping to educate perioperative professionals on their products. So we can directly link you in, to inform best and safe practice on a platform that niche key influencers are using, daily and weekly.
I really like that. One of my favorite things to talk about clinicians who invent things is they're always doing it to solve problems, right? And nurses specifically who create things that I've talked to seem fundamentally on the ground, knowing the problems, and they're trying to attack them. And that's what you are doing, right? Like some doctors do it because they're like, well, it solves my problem. And what I find nurses do is, and that's cool, that's fine. Nurses are like, we nurses and patients have this problem, and I just can't sit around and not try to solve this anymore. It's very interesting, and that's why I always love talking to you, and I knew I would enjoy this. So I think you have a B to B and a B to C. You're looking for a partnership that can help. And if people are out there, I would say this: if you wear scrubs to work or wear scrubs when you work in an operating room, you should be looking at Scrub Up. Because I think the more people see it, it's just clearly going to help. I just don't think people know it's out there. I just don't think they do. And so I'm hoping that this small podcast that we do helps a little bit, and I'm going to be sending it to people. But if people want to learn more about Scrub Up?
So I've got a website.
Go?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got a website. I can share that link with you. They can go on there. They can download it. That takes you to the app, which is currently available as a freemium or tiered paid version on the Google Play or App Store. It's also a web portal, so they can access it on a web-based platform as well. But people who don't just work in the operating room in a hospital, you can use this if you're in dental surgery or plastic surgery, anywhere a invasive procedure is undertaken. I'd love your feedback on that too. For everyone that's using it, please email me and feedback, because this is for our community. I'm doing it for, I like to think for all of us, which is why I'm doing it and working to kind of sustain it, but also to grow it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, Marrianne. If I can help, I will. I wish you the best of luck, because I know how valuable, not in the financial way, I know how valuable this product is for these places, and at the end of the day, it improves patient care. It absolutely does. It is without question. So, thank you so much for coming on. It's so great to talk to you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for letting me share my story.
Here's the call to action. If you're a surgeon, if you're an anesthesiologist, if you're a circulator, a scrub tech, a charge nurse, a sales rep, go look at Scrub Up. Look at Marrianne's website and look at what she has available. It's a low price for the amount of knowledge you can look at. I don't understand why people wouldn't go and look at this. This is the operating room. We're not auto mechanics, and I usually work on Volvos, but today I'm going to work on a Ford. This is a highly technical, no offense to my mechanic friends, but this is a very important person whose chassis we're working on up on the lift, if you will. And I'm probably just irritated a lot of people. But go look at it. Why would you not? Because this is important. The patients rely on it. Their families rely on it. You should look at it. You owe it to them. I'm Mark Copeland. I'm the Value Analysis Whisperer. I teach small med device companies how to get their new products approved. But more importantly, I talk to really smart people who are building things to help patient care at the end of the day. See you next time.